What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. Today, let's take a look at our 24 FE501w. This is the new shop bike for most of what we'll do in Baja this year. And we've got about 10 hours on this now, and so let's do a little bit of an update on what we've been doing to it, what we like about it, what some of the killer mods have been. This bike just came back from the KTM Adventure Rally in Page, Arizona. We spent the long weekend last weekend out there and shook out quite a few new things that we've added to it, and that was a really good test because we found a ton of rocks, really good trails, some wide open stuff. It was a really good mix of terrain, very similar to what we experienced in Baja, so it was a good shakeout run. So some of the new things that we've put on here since I think our last run is we've got our Taco Moto dual sport wiring harness kit now fully integrated and installed, and that gives us streetable functions. And so we've got a multi-function switch up here and on the bars, and then that gave us turn signals, horn, and let's take a look at this headlight. This is a pretty cool feature. This is a Cyclops Rally light. Now it is super classic and very specific to a look that we were going for. We wanted to kind of evoke that old school Baja HUSQVARNA heritage, and the look of that works really well with the white plastics and the Husky, and so this light is absolutely killer. Here's one of its downfalls. It's an H4 light. It is a refractive light, and so there's a center beam in the middle, a center light unit, and then there's like a cone, and that pushes the light back into the lens, you know, the refractor in there, and then it shoots it out through the glass front. And look wise, 10 out of 10. Performance wise, maybe 6 out of 10. And that's not Cyclops' fault. We do have their upgraded LED bulb inside of there. It's really a function of the glass of the face front. Now they have a Phoenix insert that goes into that, and it's much better. I saw one of those at night, and it's a big improvement, but it looks like one of those modern LED conversions. And here we're very specifically going for a look, and so we wanted to run this exact setup. And so to offset that, we have some auxiliary lights that we're going to be putting on, some auxiliary driving lights, and I think between the two plus a helmet light, we're running a Moto Minded helmet light. And let me show you the power for that. And so that light on the helmet is powered from a expanded cord, you know, one of those like flex cords, and it plugs in here, and then this is powered from the bike itself. So with a combination of all of that lighting, and I know it's a little bit fussy, it would just probably be simpler, it would be simpler to run something like a Ruby R7 and a Moto Minded bracket on here, and it would do everything we need in Baja. But again, this is just sort of a bike that we want to have a particular look on, and so you make sacrifices when you're going for style points, which is that goal here. So that's been new. We've added all those electronics. And then we've got a Trailtech Voyager Pro that we're experimenting. So this has not been mounted yet, but we're working out the configuration of how to mount that. And the Rally light gives you a really good platform up here to mount some of your accessories like that. No windscreen, and we don't want a windscreen. So we're not shooting for like a rally configuration, but we do want some more GPS up here. We'll have two GPSs. So we like to use, I use an Android phone running like OnX or some other map GPS program. And I'll probably add another one of these round balls into the threaded insert here for the bar mount with a second one, and I'll have the Garmin Montana, which I use in Baja almost every single time because it's got the E32 Baja topo maps in it, which are invaluable down there. And so sometimes I run 3 GPSs, and that's just really for testing and ultimate reliability, and it's a little bit overkill. I may end up getting rid of the phone and just going with the Montana and then the Trailtech. That's probably the configuration, but when we were in Page, Arizona for the KTM Rally, I just ran a phone. Sticking up here on the bars was swapped out to the OD Rogue grips. They now come in different colors. Went with the red. I think that offsets the colors of the bike really well. We had the GET ECU on there before. We've just been playing with some of the mapping, and we have the traction control knob on here, and that has opened up the power and it's 10 out of 10 on the power. We're gonna put a Moto Minded Bomber bar switch on here and swap out this stock one. The stock one works fine, there's no real issue with it. It just gives you a better thumb feel. These buttons can be a little bit fussy. I don't particularly mind them, they're okay, but the Bomber is a big improvement. We have mirror perches in the works. In the meantime, we just threw on a mirror clamp perch so we could have double take mirrors on the bars. And let's see if there's anything else up front. We did suspension, and while the stock suspension does work good, it works impressively good. This is easily, the hype is real on this new Enduro suspension. This is a closed chamber dual function. That is to say, you get compression and rebound. You have 2 clickers on the bottom and then the 2 clickers up top, and that is new for the 24 model. KTM hasn't done that since like the 12 through 16. Well, they used to do it all the time on bikes, but they did away with it in 17 on the Enduro bikes in favor of the, oh man, KTM's really, WP's been sort of out in the wilderness for quite a while with the 4CS and then the Explorer 48, which just, in our opinion, didn't cut it and needed a lot of reworking. And so on this fork setup, we did rework the valving just to give it a little bit better low speed. We do a lot of single track and rocky, rough stuff, and I wanted just a little more plushness in those situations. And so a revalve was all that we needed. We didn't need to change any of the internals. We do have some internal upgrades coming. However, at this stage, we just wanted to ease into it. I also dropped the forks down in the triple clamp, so they're here at the split between the top cap and then the tube, and that gave me a little more stability, straight line speed stability, which is what I was looking for. In terms of handling, let's stick with that for a minute. The new chassis and the new swing arm is more stiff. It is more rigid, which improves the accuracy of the bike. Turn in is very good, very sharp, very clean. This bike, absolutely, you just think about turning and it does. It's not twitchy or over accurate, say like the Honda is. The Honda is an incredibly sharp turning bike. This is not quite to that level, but for dual sport and enduro riding, I like them to be a little more plush. And so what I did is I derated the torque settings on the engine hangers, and then here on the chassis pivot bolt, and then the rear swing arm, or the rear nut back there, and I derated those 10%, and I've been experimenting with different torque values on those bolts. And then this bottom bolt here, so that would be any of the engine hangers, so the 2, 1 on each side up top, this one down here, and then the pivot bolt, the swing arm pivot bolt, and then back here, like I said. And I just took torque, the factory torque setting, and then derated that 10%. And that really smoothed out the bike in the rough. That, in conjunction with the suspension revalving, has made this much, much more comfortable to ride on double track and single track, and in the rocks especially. And this bike will get a set of Moscow 40 bags later, and it will be doing some BDR type overlanding trips. And when I do that, I'm going to experiment with setting those torque values back, because the additional weight of the gear on this bike may be too plush at that point after setting the sag and accounting for the additional rear end weight and maybe some tank bag weight. So I think, my theory anyway right now, is that those 2 changes based on setup may yield some significant improvements in both configurations. And so I'll be playing around with that, and we'll see how that does. But right now, with those bolts under torque 10%, that seems to, it's pleasing me very much, and we'll see how that goes. And I'd appreciate any of your thoughts or comments down below if you had any suggestions about that or any other suspension, chassis, feel changes that might help and benefit this bike. So far, that's working out well. We threw on a skid plate, molecule skid plate, and just looking around, we threw in, so I'm running this stock tank right now, and that was enough fuel. We did, we have one set aside, and so we'll swap that out later. And as you know, this is the new, this fuel pump, get the seat off. Seat concepts, by the way, this is the XL. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I have been resistant to run the XL for a long time, thinking that was kind of an old man seat, and maybe I'm just that old man now, but I very much appreciate the extra width here in the back, and it does not, absolutely does not interfere. KTM Hard Parts years ago made, and they still may, they had a wide seat, and I think that was on my 8 through 11 generation 530, and it was so wide, and the width started so early that it did interfere with like the backs of your legs when you were trying to get in position for steep downhill, and I didn't care for it and I took it off. However, this does not do that. This is fabulous. Really like this seat, and I got this in, I think this is a low configuration. It may be standard, but it's definitely not tall. So this is a seat that I'm very happy with. I dig it a lot. So back to the fuel tank. This is the new generation fuel pump, and that's here in the center, and we've talked about this before. And I ran out of gas when I still had gas into the side wings, and this is a very common issue on the new generation bike. This in fact, this is when I was out, so you can see I've got this much gas, but this is below the pickup, and so this gas is unavailable. And so to get in to camp, I had to basically, as soon as it started to sputter, I had to wheelie. So you pop a wheelie and then you splash up some of that tank into the pickup cup. And that's how you do it. Or you could also rock the bike side to side. And that was on a road section. Coming into camp, I had about a 6-mile road transit, and that's the technique that I had to use. We have a solution coming, and it's absolutely awesome, and we hope to have that released here super soon. Lots of development has gone into this, lots of prototyping, and that is going to give you a pickup here in the bottom of the tank, and our setup will be usable for any tank, whether it's a stock or aftermarket, and we are really excited about that. And I needed it and didn't have it, so I was kind of bummed, but on these new bikes, this is not a new problem, and there are solutions coming. So that's that. GET ECU, this is the new SX1 ECU with all new mapping for the 2024s. Absolutely fantastic. This gets you, so the stock bike power-wise is the same as the 20 through. Really everything performance and power-wise is very similar to what you had on the 20 through 23 generation. Stock bike, this put out somewhere in the 36, 37, 38 horsepower range, and then now in this trim we're pumping out 56, 57, which is exactly in line and on track with what these bikes were doing in that previous generation. Compression ratio stayed the same, and so the engine architecture, because it really didn't change, the power didn't change. And so if you are used to the engine dynamics of the last gen, you'll be very pleased with this one. That's about the same there. The frame, of course, is all new. Chassis is all new. Subframe is new. This is why we bought a Husky, because I've never spent money on a Husky until now. And the reason is on the past generations, the downspar on the subframe was carbon composite and is a known weak point and a failure point, cracking. And so I never wanted to have that happen in Mexico, so I never rode a Husky. But now with the new configuration, the new downspar, that's not a worry anymore. And so this is why we have the Husky. This is why we'll be running it for the 24. And so far I'm absolutely impressed and really very much like this bike. Let's see here. We threw on a Golan fuel filter. That gives us much more filter capacity than the OEM cone filter, which was in the quick disconnect before. And then we will be upgrading this. We're out of stock right now, but we have some coming, the metal CPC connectors. And then we're gonna do a reroute on this hose. This still is vulnerable. So while it's an improvement, I think, over the previous generation where you had the fuel tap outlet here and you had the risk of like getting some sticks or having it break off in a crash, because that's removed, it's still, though, I don't like it being here, and we have in the works a reconfiguration of this line, and I will put it under here behind the engine mount, and then the filter will be in this little pocket right there. So that's coming soon. We're running the Takamoto oil filter on this bike, and that is allowing us, like we did on the past generations, when we run in clean air and we use a very high spec engine oil like the Moto 7100 or Maxima Pro Plus 4, that in conjunction with dual sport type riding, not smoking the clutch, not riding in dirty air, not under racing conditions, we've been running reliably 50 and 60 hour oil changes with oil sample testing that validates that. And so we'll continue to do that on this generation bike. We threw on some dingo fork guards as we've been in the rocks and we'll be spending time in the rocks. And then the X, these are a Cherubies X Mud. These fork gators right here have almost essentially eliminated blown fork seals on all our bikes, and we run those now all the time. P3 Racing on the carbon fiber disc guard. Looks cool, works good, weighs virtually nothing. This caught my eye. This is Moto Minded. Chris makes this little bracket right here, and this routes our cable now because we don't have that stock mask routing, so that works really good to control the cables. The Canyon Dancer tie-down loops, we put those on all our bikes. Running stock levers, very happy with stock Brembo and Brake Tech levers. I may change those later, but for right now, I don't see the need. Back here on the tires, Shinko, this I think is a 505, yeah, 505 Cheater. One of my go-to tires, soft rubber. It's got a nice wide space pattern, works really good in the mud, the sand, the hard pack. It has very good durability. It's not obviously as long lasting as, say, like you know, some of the, like, what am I thinking of, a Maxima Desert IT tire. Those last forever, but at a huge sacrifice for traction and feedback. This one I really like, and I run the 130 or the 120 size, which really is about anybody else's 130. It's a beefy, meaty, big tire. It provides a lot of comfort when you're on really rocky sections. It's not, because of its width and weight, it's not the ideal like woods single track size, but for open desert, Moab, Page, Arizona, Baja, very, very good tire for that. And then we have moose balls inside of there, and we love the moose balls. And then I always weight, do the weights, so we always counterweight the rim lock for highway sections. On this bike running the FMF, this is the 4.1. This is it's essentially a motocross muffler, and it's tuned and does a great job pulling out the mid-range and the top-end power. It's very aggressive. The power is snappy and abrupt, and if that's what you're after, it's a fantastic unit. I'm also running the Q4 insert, so essentially we've turned the 4.1 into a Q4, and so the sound is not as loud, but it's very loud. And my preference muffler is typically a Graves, and that'll probably go back onto this one as we do more riding and testing, and that gives, with the insert, just very smooth, strong low end, and it's a great all-around muffler, and we can remove the insert when we want to be loud and obnoxious and have really good clean and aggressive top end power. So just different mufflers for different uses. Neither are good, neither are bad. They're all great. They have personalities like anything, and if you're after a certain type of personality, there are different components that will give you that. And then up front, let's see, what tire are we running on there? This was a tire that I think we just took off another bike because we were kind of in a pinch and didn't want to run a tube tire, and so this is a Motos Tractionator. This is the Enduro ST, and this has been a good, reliable tire. We've run this in the past and have good experiences with it, and we did as well. And this also has moose balls in there. And so that's probably it for the 10-hour update. So far, this bike has absolutely done a tremendous job for us. The transmission is easily the smoothest shifting KTM transmission ever. It just clicks through the gears so well. Shiftless gears changes are fantastic. It feels like a polished works bike race transmission. Very, very pleased with it. Some of the preparation work that we have done on this bike so far is and I do this on all our bikes, we spray ACF 50, which is an anti-oxidation terminal protector on all of the electrical connections, and that was part of the basic prep of this bike. We'll probably make a video where we just specifically talk about things we do on an all new bike to prep it out, and that's probably something we need to put together here, because I know a lot of us riders are out there are updating our equipment to the 24s, or some of us have older bikes that could use a refresh, and would probably like to see what some of those things are, what some of those tips are. So that's probably it. We'll cut this off. If you have any questions or comments about this bike or anything on it or anything about what we do, please let us know. You can hit us up in the comments or shoot us a message on any of the typical ways you do that. And thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, go out, get some adventure.